Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CW Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications at the CWU. Delighted to have with me tonight our Deputy General Secretary Postal, Terry Pullinger. Good evening, Terry.
Chris.
And also got National Officer Responsibilities for every single one of our delivery members, Mark Boach. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, all.
So yeah, we can see on our screens, which is brilliant. Already have got nearly 1,000 people online just within a few moments. So that's brilliant. Just while Terry and Mark get prepared to make their opening remarks, it'd be great if you could tag your colleagues, could share the link, could get this out to as many people as possible, because this is a difficult moment for the union. We know from feedback some of you are going through some difficulties, but as always, this union turns up, it faces up, and it takes those questions and it puts across the point of view from the union's leadership. So we know you enjoy these sessions. We know they go down well with the members, and this is your opportunity. So both Terry and Mark are committed tonight to basically making this your session. So what we're going to have an opening statement from our Deputy General Secretary Postal, who's going to set the scene, and then followed by Mark's going to do much the same, but it's maybe in a little bit more detail and relevance to the delivery function. And then really it's your session. We're not going to be able to pick up tonight, individuals to the point of, this is my delivery, this is my walk, this is my issue. But we promise you, we're going to tackle all the issues that you've been raising, whether it's timing of the revisions, whether it's training, whether it's recruitment, all the difficult things that you've put forward in the last couple of weeks, we're going to pick up tonight. Alongside that, whilst the audience just finishes building, we asked you last week to fill out a feedback form if your office had difficulties in revision. Led by Mark, we put that feedback form out. And today, we got over 300 replies to that. So thank you to everyone who replied. But today, Mark has gone through them with his team diligently. And we have sent all of those issues to our divisional reps. So a very senior level intervention from the union, and asked our div reps to pick up on those. So, once again, this union making sure they look after you in the workplace. One final point from me: let us know where you're watching from. Let us know how long you've been a member of our fantastic trade union. And that's enough from me. I'll hand over to Terry Pullinger to set the scene on the session. Over to you, Terry.
Yeah, cheers, Chris. And I want to start with a massive thank you to everyone and all that they do, our members, and as well as our activists. And also just reposition again. I came out last week. I did a video last week when we was up in Birmingham with the executive, just to remind people that we'd come to a landmark moment in the agreement, the end of October. And just to remind everybody that what we agreed to in the Pathway to Change agreement, that we would do revisions everywhere. So I know it's going to be a lot of focus on deliveries tonight, but revision activity has taken place in every function, in every business unit, right across this organisation. And the commitment was we would do that by the end of October. Everyone voted on that deal, and that was the deal. It was hugely ambitious, and it was unprecedented, that level of change within our organisation. It was the first time we'd committed to that. But we have to remember why that was important. 4 years of stagnation, 4 years of dispute. People like Rico back just constantly blaming the union for everything. The union can't deliver agreements, won't deliver agreements, etc., etc. So it was massively important, and I think most people know this, that we had to show this time how serious we were about the opportunity to reshape our industry for the future, reinvent Royal Mail, create jobs, grow it, etc. But a lot of that and the support we get for that was dependent with the external people as well, the opinion formers in and outside of the organisation, to see that we could deliver the agreement. And by and large, we've done that. So that's a magnificent achievement, and I thank everyone who's participated. But of course, in scale, change of that scale, there's a lot of learning to be had and all. We got reps. There would have been managers that hadn't done revisions before, etc. So this was all being done from a standing start. There was no lead-in. We just had to get weaving. We had to get going. And clearly some revisions have left right till late, some of the structural revisions, etc., with the tweaking and interventions. So it's understandable that some people are really concerned, or were they engaged in the process? And there's some stories that are concerning, but there's also some good stories that you don't hear about. We do. We go out and about. There's some people that have done some really good revisions, and the members are okay with it. And as I say, in other places, we've got some learning to do. So what this is about is us coming back out, recognising there's things we've got to learn, there's things we've got to do better as we go forward, and there's things we've got to improve now. We've got to find solutions for some of the issues we've got now, whether it's the timing of a revision, whether it's about recruitment, etc. You know, we've got to go back round and improve that, because this will be a constant theme, incremental change as we go forward. So that's what tonight's about. Chris, once again, us not hiding away and showing that myself and Mark, you know, and all the officers are together on this, and wherever we can help, wherever I can help, I will. But now over to Mark to perhaps talk about specifically about some of the issues around delivery.
Thanks, Terry. So Terry's just done my bit, and you're straight in, Mark. Go on, buddy.
Yeah, excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold. Yeah, good evening, everyone. I mean, Terry's set the scene, and you know, it's fair to say that to undertake the amount of activity that we have done has been extremely challenging. You know, the scaling delivery, because of the amount of sites that we cover and the amount of members that are affected, is always a big challenge. And so to carry out revisions across the whole of the UK in pretty much, given the COVID restrictions, sort of 5-6 months has been, you know, it's been difficult. And I know from speaking to our reps, and I do go out and visit. I'm visiting another unit in the morning. I was in one on Friday. I know the pressure that people are under. I know the pressure that our reps have been put under. But to deliver the agreement, which, you know, we were tasked to do, an agreement which our members overwhelmingly voted on, and to carry out the activity, you know, has been monumental. And I want to thank everyone on my team and the reps around the country, along with our members who played a part in that. But you do recognise that there are issues, and you know, tonight is part of that recognition. Not that we're not aware of that already, but to deal with some of those points and questions head on, because we don't run away from those things. Some of the aspects and issues are of the employer's making, particularly, for example, where we've got vacancies and where recruitment has been too slow. But we have been under pressure to deliver the agreement for the benefits. I think that's what's important to keep focused. In particular, the short working week benefit, you know, getting that for all of our members, the pay uplift for our part-timers, the uplifting contractual elements for our part-time members, which has been significant in many units right across the country, and delivering the second hour short working week. They were elements that we pushed, and the timescales that we pushed, in order to get those implemented by October. So in that sense, we put ourselves under an incredible amount of pressure to deliver that. Now, we know that there's issues out there, as I said. We know that there's problems out there, as I said, but we have made it clear to the company, and I know the company look at these broadcasts the same as our members do. And so I'm saying this to them again, not that I haven't said it to them already. We will not move to new further deployments in next year's program, revision program of activity, until we have sorted out the problems that still exist for those revisions that have been implemented over the last few months. The deployment isn't the end of the revision process, because there is a post-implementation review process that needs and requires local agreement and sign-off. And until those have been completed in every unit that is deployed on the structural revisions, then, as I say, they have to be agreed locally and signed off locally to sign off to say that the revision is working. All mails are being cleared to the right specification, and deliveries are doable. So, you know, that is going to happen. We are in the process of signing a joint statement on that. That's in play. That will be going out probably towards the end of the week. for that activity and that engagement to fix those problems and go back round those units that have deployed to fix those problems will happen. And as I say, we've made it clear to the company, and I say it here again, that we will not move forward on other revision activity until that has been completed, until we've sorted those problems. So it has been a monumental task. We have deployed 886 tabletop revisions, and we've deployed circa 320, 330 structural revisions. That is a massive program, and not all of those revisions are right. We know that. We know that from the stuff that you've sent into us. We've looked at that, as Chris said in the opening. We've dissected that down into the divisions and the branches from which you come from, and we've asking for reports from the divisions and from the branches, and that will be fed into that PIR process that we're going to go through. So it has been a monumental program. Have we learned lessons? Absolutely, we have. Are we going to fix them, and are we determined to do that? Yes, we are. We're embarking on a process internally where we're going to review the whole of the structural revision process. We're going to do that internally. We are then going to meet with the company to revise some of the things that we know are wrong, and we're going to improve on some of the areas which need improving. Things like engagement of frontline in particular when the routes are produced. I know, because when I've been out talking to our members, they feel like the change has been done to them rather than with them and with their involvement, and that's got to be improved. Engagement of the reps and the working relationship with the managers, the loop planning, for example, the route order in which it's served in, real basic issues, the frame layout, walk sequencing, and the presentation of mails into the unit, but the frames in particular has been a massive issue that keeps coming up that we must get the company to resolve, and we will improve the process. We, as I said, we're embarking on that. We need to improve on other aspects such as training. That was restricted to us during COVID because we couldn't do that in the classroom, and that restricted a lot of our activity. But going forwards, we will absolutely improve on all of those areas and make sure that we get more support and more training for our reps in the front line. So we've done a lot, but we recognise there's a hell of a lot more to do, and we're absolutely determined to do that.
Thanks, Mark. Brilliant scene setter there, and you've picked up loads of the questions that members have been asking. So hopefully, if you've listened to Mark there, you'd have seen that some of your points have been picked up by Mark. We've also got tonight, we've got Tony Booch from our National and Postal Executive, who I can see he's really busy in the comments, picking up individual concerns. I've seen lots of PEC members, staff at headquarters and branches in the question. So thank you for that, because that really does help make our job and life a lot easier. Terry, the plan tonight is for Terry to try and pick up some of the more general issues, and obviously Mark to talk about some of the specifics. In line with that, Terry, we've got a comment from Graham Bertie, who says working together has been achieved between trade unions and employers in other industries during periods of change. When is Royal Mail going to grasp the concept that working together and hold working together workshops between reps and managers? If you can't get this right, you'll never be able to make change, to take the business forward, I think. And there's quite a few people making the same point about relationship, Terry. And I know you've detailed the improving relationship at national level, and I thought it might be worth you talking a little bit about, how and when that's going to flow through across the union.
But I mean, you're right. That is our policy to get that. Obviously, I said we've come out of 4 years of dispute, and culture is one of the key issues. It sort of fades away sometimes off the agenda with some of the stuff you're dealing with day to day, of course, but it's still a major priority of ours, and we're still punching away with it. We're still initiatives that are driving a different culture, IR training, industrial relations training, joint training, reps and managers. All this stuff is being rolled out, and improving that relationship at local level, giving more autonomy to the people locally to be able to make the adjustments and have the parameters that they can actually put solutions in place rather than wait for someone from the centre to tell them what to do. The company as well, we're in the same position on this. We want that decision making locally, so people don't have to go days or weeks looking for a solution, waiting for a solution. And I don't know what you've seen that's come out, but recruitment is one of the issues that we've reacted on immediately, because other companies are out there recruiting and all putting all sorts of incentives in place. But just the structure of how it was being done in Royal Mail, sometimes people waiting 3 months for an interview. So we've made an agreement. We've got a joint statement. We've put it out there. Friends and family within the office, get to them first. Whether we do local advertising, letting local people do that recruitment so we can turn it around far quicker is an intervention that's already been made. So I can assure you, as part of the program of moving this on, and let's be honest, this has been 9 months since the agreement. Let's just think about what it was like prior to that. There was no relationships whatsoever, and the culture was appalling. There is a lot of work being done, and when we do the trust surveys, I encourage people to fill them in. Tell us if the relationship's not good locally or it's appalling. You've got to tell us in them surveys, because where we get the results from them, we then put an intervention in place. But I can assure you that we are pushing the cultural side of it. We are pushing the fact that members have got to be engaged. People have got to have a say in what's going on locally. And we are absolutely focusing in on the relationship of the manager and of the rep, and making sure it really is about mutual interest, and then making decisions together in the interest of that unit. So you're on line with the policy, Graham, with your question. It's just the time it takes for all of that stuff to not only roll out, but actually start having an effect.
Thanks, Terry. Mark, something that's coming through, just before I actually bring Mark back in, just to say it, people who are asking the same question over and over and over again, making it really difficult for us to be able to pull those questions out from around the country. So if you've asked your question, then we will promise you, try and get to it tonight. But so stop cutting and pasting. It'd be really good for us so we can get as many questions through. Mark, a recurring theme here I'm seeing in the comments, literally I would say probably about 50 or 60 times, is the quality, or in accusational terms, probably lack of quality of the delivery planners. People saying it's a shambles, people saying that their revisions are being planned from planners who are hundreds of miles away, people saying that their planners are telling them that it'll take X amount of time to get on a route, and they're proving that they're wrong, yet these things are still put on the table. So massive issue, it seems, on the quality of planners based on tonight's session. So one for you to pick up, Mark.
Well, in terms of the planners, obviously we don't recruit the planners, we don't employ them. There is an issue over the quality of the planners, because initially Royal Mail didn't have enough resource. They supplemented that through the joint statement that we did in, I think it was in early August, where they drafted in an additional 400 planners. The quality of some of those people, as your question, Chris, is questionable, to say the least. The remoteness of them, that shouldn't be happening, because they should be appearing in the units at least twice a week while they're doing the planning capability. They shouldn't be remote. Ultimately, the planners drive some of the activity, but they shouldn't have it's the right of veto from the units if the duties and deliveries can't be done. One of the aspects that has to be improved is I mentioned it in the intro, is the engagement of the front line. Because look, the people who know the deliveries best are the people that do them day in, day out. And I think in an effort to speed up the revision process, what the company wrongly chose to do is to cut down on the engagement of the front line. And certainly when the routes are planned, or even in advance of the routes being planned, getting the base data right needs more input from local people and local the guys and girls on the ground in the localities, because they're the people who can say whether the routes are potentially doable or not. And then when the routes have been constructed, some of the mapping has been awful, and the quality of that mapping when it's been displayed in the unit, it's not been to a high enough quality. B, it's not been displayed long enough, and C, in some cases it's just simply highlighted roads where previously, under the previous process, there was an opportunity. It was called Sid and Sarah, I think it was, where the planners would walk through the delivery with the frontline staff and members, and our members would have the opportunity to see if it was, which way the route was the delivery was serviced, in which order, which way the loops were planned, were they balanced out, could it be done in the time frames, etc., etc. Now all of that has been short-circuited, and that has been to the detriment of what it produces. So one of the things in the review we've got to get back in there is the opportunity locally to have more influence in the outputs, and that includes the planning resource as well, and the planners, because what we can't have, we shouldn't be having anyway, in terms of the remoteness, producing routes that just don't work, is a scenario where locally people don't feel that they have any influence or opportunity to shape the final outcomes of a revision. And because if people, and I repeat the point, if people feel that the revision is being done to them rather than with their involvement, and it's never going to work. One of the things I suppose that does stand out, and I've always said it, is that you cannot make change in delivery offices without the full involvement of the people who work the duties, who do the deliveries, because it doesn't work. So that has to be improved upon.
Thanks, Mark. That's brilliant. Terry, one of the things, I mean, and I know we were talking about it just before we went live, actually, is, the age of the internet and other things is, obviously Royal Mail have come in with the planners, sometimes working with reps, sometimes not. And they've enforced a change, and obviously they've led that. But some of our members are choosing to do, a little bit of a bash of the union, and we laughed about it earlier on from Come On, as in not laughed at the bashing, but laughed at the fact that you just take that as part and parcel of the job. Andy makes this point, though, and I really think it's worth you answering. He says, I'm struggling to find in the last 10 years where the union have helped me in my job. All we ever hear is how wonderful you've done, yet on the streets we've been pushed to breaking point. We've now got managers saying that we just deliver parcels and tracked items. How can this be right? And I just wondered, obviously, clearly what Andy is saying there at the end about being told to deliver only tracked items and packets, it is not right. I'm sure you'll have a view on that. But the view that this union, isn't a good union or hasn't helped members. Terry, your take.
Well, listen, the thing we've always said, Andy, is the reality for people like yourself. You judge that under the roof where you work. Many of our members have been going to work, as I've said before, in the same pile of bricks for years, and that's where they're judging the trade union, and that's where they're judging management on those local daily issues. I think everyone knows where our focus has been. Ever since privatisation, there has been a massive risk that we would be the same as any other privatisation, and this great public service would be the victim of that. We've always believed that you could build on this great public service. Well, we never believed it should be privatised, but even in its privatised form, there's no reason why this great public service can't stand up, other than, of course, those that would like to come in and break it up just purely to fill their own bank accounts, not talk about the service to the country. And our battle was really, really tough. So when we celebrate what the union's done, first and foremost, is had we not have fought as hard as we did, and we were in a fight for our lives, had we not changed the direction of travel with people like Rico back, then I honestly believe, and I think this union believes, yourself and all of our members, one, there wouldn't be nowhere near as many of us as there is now, and two, they would without doubt, they would have attacked the terms and conditions. And some of that was in the proposals we were dealing as late as last November, December, before we got the pathway to change agreement. So when we say we've done well, I think we've protected our industry and our members from that what's the conventional wisdom of privatisation for something like 9 years now, whatever it is long we've been privatised. And that's a major achievement. We've managed to get pay rises all the way through that. We're managing to reduce the hours of a shorter working week, etc. So we're trying to get it that as we change the industry, and it's got to change, that we benefit our members. One of the things we struggle with, Andy, is our people don't like change. So I tend to agree with you with the dynamics of our organisation in terms of letter decline. I know there's still millions, but compared to what we used to deliver, it's switched, hasn't it? There's more parcels and packets, and that's the revenue growth area. That's what we've got to get into if we want to protect jobs. We want to get into new products and services. All these things are in the agreement. They've been in our agreement for the last few years. That's been our ambition, our vision as a trade union. Why? Because work means jobs. And if we got more work in there and there's more revenue coming in and the company's doing well, we got stronger arguments for our pay deals and the benefits that we want for our people. So I don't think our members have been the victims of what's happened in many, many other industries. And I'm sure, Andy, you must have family and friends at this moment in time when people are talking about hire and fire and people just being told you're going to be paid less and there's nothing you can do about it or leave. You know, you're not in that position. So the trade union has fought for its members. Many unions accused of not doing that. We have definitely fought for it. But in winning the right, which took the best part of 4 years, we got an agreement in the middle and then they changed CEOs and it all kicked off again. But between there is stagnation, wasn't there, locally? So to move this industry forward now, we've got to go at pace. And what's built up over them 4 years is where the jobs changed. It's got tougher and tougher for people. But we are looking at the fact that if we don't have a short working week, it will be longer out on the street because the job's changing. The nature of the job is changing. How are we going to do the job? All these things have got to be looked at. And so we've moved at pace on this agreement. We're equally determined to move on pace about how we redesign the industry going forward to ensure we've got to get the balance right of getting the work in, getting the revenue in, getting quality of service right, because that's what we're judged on. We have to do them things in order to protect jobs, grow jobs, maintain terms and conditions, improve terms and conditions. We have to do those things, but we've got to get the balance right where people can do the job. We've got an aging workforce where physically people can cope. Have we got the right tools? Is it the right design now? What's it going to look like in 5 years' time, et cetera, et cetera? We've got to have them debates. And when we do, Andy, quite often, even though everyone knows really it's what we've got to do if we're going to protect people's security of employment, et cetera, going forward, even though we've got to do it when we make an agreement to make change, when we go to deliver it, no one likes it. No one likes change. That's not new. It's not new to this moment in time. It's always been the same. You know, we moan and groan, but we don't like change. But we need to get it right. The job is getting harder and harder. I think it's way harder than when I was a postman. I really do. And we've got to make sure, as well as growing the industry, as well as getting terms and conditions for people where we can, you know, say, look what we've done and we're great. We've got to get that right arrangements locally so that when people are judging us in the workplace, they agree that this trade union has done well for them. And by the way, Andy, I will say, though, a lot of our members do, mate. We go around the countries, I do AGMs, we go to meetings. A lot of people know that this trade union has achieved far more for its members. When the whole of the world of work has been under attack, we've defended our members well. But we've got to get it right in the workplace. It shouldn't feel like you're coming in and, you know, it's a battle every single day just to do your job. And we're determined to get that right, Andy. But it's been 9 months since the agreement, and these things take time to land, as I've already said. Thank you, Terry.
Mark, loads of questions coming in. This is one that's come in, I would say, probably 20 or 30 times tonight, in caption well by Jamie. Stopped in the street daily by customers who are not receiving important doctors' hospital letters from 1 week to the next. This cannot be allowed to continue. So a mass of our members saying to us tonight, Mark, that, you know, tracked and parcels are being prioritised, letters shoved to the side. You know, this surely is not acceptable. Like, what are we as a union going to do about this practice, which seems to be relatively widespread, judging by our members' comments tonight?
I mean, absolutely. Some of it's been driven by high levels of vacancies. Some of it's been driven by the revisions that haven't worked well. Although when we push the company on the latter point, they're saying that there's no correlation between that and the revisions, there is an issue overall. And what are we doing about it? We will push the company. We are concerned that, I mean, I think the last question as well alluded to it. It's on the same theme around the fact that tracked items are given more prominence because there's more visibility for them than there is standard letters, and that management in many areas are concentrating on that product rather than the USO delivery and USO quality. So we will push the company on making sure that USO has been observed. It's not right that letters are getting left to the jeopardy of other products, and it's absolutely we know that some of the reporting that's going on isn't adequate. There's misreporting, and we will do everything that we can if you bring it to our attention. And previously, over the years, we've had this situation, and we've raised every one of those issues where it's reported in. I don't want a deluge of people now writing in saying it's this office, that office, but if we have to do that and we have to go to the regulator to expose that, but the regulator must already be aware, because the delivered quality in some places is dropping to 83%. I've had a conversation, or several conversations, two today actually, with senior managers, where we've said exactly the same as you've raised on the question, and that is that it's not an acceptable situation. The other thing we've got in some units as well, and we might as well be honest, is that there's a resistance from some of our own members to rotate some of the deliveries that are failing. And so, where we have got someone who's off sick or there is a vacancy, we're not rotating the delivery to make sure that it does get some regular service. And it's in some places, it's not going out, it's staying on the bay for several days. So we've got part to play in that as well as reps, and to encourage members, and some of our members who maybe would rather take out a few parcels rather than do a USO delivery. But it isn't acceptable overall, and it is a worry. We're worried as well and concerned, and we've articulated this to the company, particularly now as we enter into peak, and it's already started. Peak and volumes are already starting to increase because Christmas is going to come a lot earlier this year in terms of shopping trends, because that is what customers are being encouraged to do by retailers. That in many cases, that DOMs and managers will take the easy option and will fail USO in order to keep the big retailers happy on tracked items, and that is not acceptable, because not only is that not acceptable for the quality reasons, that will only serve to exacerbate and increase letter decline and push that further, and Royal Mail will lose even more letters as a result of it, which is not good for anybody, certainly not good for the customer, the consumer, or anybody else. So it's not an acceptable position.
Thank you, Mark. Terry, you want to indicate that?
Yeah, because I wanted to give some other balance to it. It's quality of service is the jewel in the crown. We have to get quality of service right. We're pushing for that focus, because that's not in deliveries, by the way, just in deliveries. Sometimes it's whether the mail arrives at the right time at the delivery office. This isn't all the blame of deliveries. We've got to make sure all our functions are connected and working well. And also, as I understand the stats, there's many parts of the country where people are delivering excellent quality of service, and there's some that's not. So I know the company's talking to Mark at the moment about a task force to sort of, if you like, for want of a better word, to go into some of the the worst examples. Not to blame people. This ain't a blame culture. It's to understand why and put interventions in place to make sure we get the quality of service right, because that's massively important for all the reasons Mark's just said. And the learning from that will help us put immediate interventions into other places. I mean, if it's blatantly being done, and it's which is totally unacceptable, and no one's looking for a solution, the local manager or anyone else looking for a solution to try and make sure that they don't have to do the wrong things, then it should be challenged. And that's I'd encourage local reps to challenge that. If you think there's an intervention we can make or the local manager can make, work with the manager, try to negotiate a solution. And if you're just getting no response, then we need to feed that up, because as well as putting in a task force, even if it's not as bad as somewhere else, we have to get it back in our heads that the quality of service is the jewel in the crown. If we don't deliver that, it puts at threat letters, that puts that at threat, as Mark just said, but also other contracts. If we're not delivering, people will go elsewhere. And there is some evidence that some of the big companies that we deliver their tracked items are starting to move them to other people. Now, I dare say they'll come back during Christmas, because we're the only one. Normally, everyone tries to dump on us at Christmas when they can't cope, the other places. But it is a major issue. It's not just in deliveries, right across that we're looking at it. And we're making that a priority as well. So we're not ignoring that fact. And we've got to make sure we allow people locally to be able to put things in place so that we maintain quality of service.
Thank you, Terry. I'm going to come right back to you if I can, because I had a general question planned for you. Kate Anderson is obviously very emotive. She's basically saying, "Well, the union going to come out of his ivory tower and see what's going on, and that we're blaming the members." And I think there's that sort of feel coming through from the chat that almost instead of it being Royal Mail being the problem, all of a sudden the union is the problem. And the secondary part of the question, which is also coming through loads, is that effectively people are saying what the shorter working week has meant for them is basically exactly the same work but less time to do it. And when you feel that against the backdrop, to nick one of your phrases, Terry, of what a tremendous achievement gaining a shorter working week was and is for this union, when you see what's happening in other industries out there, it seems a little bit soured in some places, because people feel not like they should feel like this is great, this is less time out of the work, better work-life balance, up rating and pay for part-time members. They think, well, I've just got to do exactly the same work, but I've got less time to do it. What would you say, both on engagement, on us getting out, on us getting the blame, and on a shorter working week, Terry?
Well, Kate, I'm not saying it is the workers' fault, unless it is the workers' fault. But we're not saying that, are we? We're saying that there've been no revisions done for years. Jobs are out of sync. In a lot of offices we do visit, and by the way, Kate, we do go out, and nearly every weekend as well. So it's not that we don't go out. Mark's just said he's visited 2 offices last week. We go out as much as we can, but we've also got to negotiate with the employer on things. We're not saying it's the workers' fault, but we go into lots of offices and people will say to us, but the duties are unfair. Some people have got all the good jobs. We need a revision, which should be fair. Someone's got a bigger workload than somebody else. It may be an issue around seniority. There may be lots of issues. The way our part-time has been treated over the last few years is absolutely appalling. And every one of us has known a lot of them have been doing hours, which was the equivalent of full-time, but they wasn't getting their contracts made up. They are now. So we are trying to address those issues. No one's blaming the workers. I'm only blaming the only reason they'd be blaming the workers is if we're not, or we're trying to resist what it is we agreed that didn't just get us a short working week, it's got pay rises as well. So it's trying to get the right balance of how this is to be done. What we're also doing, for years and years, we never had an agreed productivity level. What the employer wanted was technology to tell you, this is what you'll be doing every day, and technology to force an issue where they call continuous improvement, which would drive modern day slavery. We've outmaneuvered that because we're agreeing a productivity level based on a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And we're trying to get that bedded in so people, they only do the amount of work you're meant to be doing for a fair day's work. So whether you're doing that for 37 hours or 35 hours or whatever it is we get to, once all these things are bedded in, and it's only been 9 months since the agreement, once these things all bed in and we've got them proper agreed productivity levels, not only will we look for a productivity scheme as well locally when people do perform outside of what would be accepted as a fair day's work, but it would be what is the fair day's work for an hour? And then you would do that for the hours you're employed. So no one's saying, it's just a simple calculation of saying, I want you to do exactly the same walk for an hour less. If you couldn't cope with the work at 38 hours, then it's an unacceptable duty at 37 hours, even more so, isn't it? That's about negotiation locally. That's about the ability to do that. We are not hiding in ivory towers. I really resent that comment, Kate, because we really are trying to address these issues and trying to push power back to the workplace so that can be addressed at source and not by some manager or union rep, if that's how you feel about us, sitting in some ivory tower. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to push it back down to give you that level of control. And all of these things we're trying to do, and we've tried to land in the last 9 months. So I don't accept the comment. We're not blaming workers at all. We know how difficult it is. And if you've had duties that couldn't be achieved by anyone, even by a paratrooper, then clearly that's what we've been trying to address with the revision activity, haven't we? So it's we don't agree the local revisions. The local rep and the members should agree the local revisions. That's the point. We want to push it back down there so that you can challenge locally and say, this is impossible, this job. I can't do it. But if it's against our agreed productivity levels and everything else, then there might be an issue. But us pushing that power down is so you can address those things. But don't say this union don't come out, because we're always out, visiting workplaces, doing AGMs, doing branch meetings, always. We are the closest union to its membership in existence in this country, I would suggest.
Yeah, I think
can I just say on top of that, I mean, look, we're in the problem business. But Terry and myself, I always say this, look, my phone don't ring because people want to say nice things to me. My phone rings or they send me emails because there's issues. That's what we deal with as a trade union, and that's perfectly understandable. And we do tend to concentrate on some of the negatives, but there are lots of positives in some of these revisions. Many positives. There's part-time uplift, part-time to full-time, permanent contracts have been afforded in improved earnings and improved attendance patterns. One of the things that we really fought hard for, if you cast your mind back to where we started on this journey before we got the Pathway to Change agreement, was Royal Mail's insistence that they didn't want any involvement of the local parties. They didn't want any local negotiation, no local involvement or input, no influence on the attendance patterns that came out as a result of it. The fact that we had to fight very hard for all of those improvements, and they're all included in the agreement, earnings packages, attendance packages, uplift from part-timers to full-time. There's many things that we've achieved in the revisions agreements. Have we got it all right everywhere? No. Have we got some issues in some places? Yes, absolutely. But we're going to get back round and we're going to sort some of those issues out. But for people to say that the union hasn't done anything, or it would be better if it didn't exist, what's it done for me? Sorry, but we cannot accept that. That is not the reality. Not the reality, one iota, not at all.
Thank you, Mark. Terry, one of the things I want to explore with you now is like democracy endorsement, if you like, of these revisions. So there's a mix. There's a load of people who are saying that their reps done a brilliant job, but felt really pressure. There's people on here saying they voted no for the revision. It was still brought in. There's people here saying that they didn't have a rep in the office it was brought in. I noticed yesterday or the day before on one of our pages, Bob Maguire, one of our Northeast divisional reps, he sat out and said every office in the Northeast has had a consultation process. As the reps agreed it's been voted by the members. Only then has it gone in. But there's a big group of our members here who are saying basically we've had zero involvement in this process. It's changed and it's an absolute shambles. Just that point on, I suppose, what would you see as like the model in terms of how we should be doing that? And what would you say to members who feel they have fallen some way or totally short of that?
Well, Mark's already touched on the engagement. I mean, our expectation should be, and it should be the expectation of every branch, our structure is better than any other union. You take it in Royal, and let's take the Royal Mail side. We got divisional reps. Well, we've got our EC members out that have been deployed in the field helping out. We've got divisional reps. We've got area reps. We've got local reps. We've got branches. We've got branch officials everyone can pull their weight here. There is no reason why any unit should be left hanging in this country. No reason whatsoever. And if they're not being treated right, if they're not being engaged on the changes that are being made, if they haven't voted on them changes or whatever, and we found a level with them, that's not to say everyone who votes no, it don't go in. It's a majority. It's a democracy that we use. But, it's got to be addressed, doesn't it? So we make an agreement nationally, we got to deliver it. If it's being delivered in the wrong way to the detriment of our people, and if a unit ain't got a rep, then I would expect the area rep to be in there doing it. We would expect the branch to try and step up and put somebody in there doing it. You can't just look at, in an organisation this size with something like 120,000 workers or whatever it is, and all the units we've got an industrial relations structure second to none. And there is no reason, I repeat, no reason why any unit should be left out there hanging or left out on their own. If you go to your branch, the branch shouldn't just dismiss that. If you go to your area rep or your divisional rep, and if it comes up here and there's a genuine grievance, and we've had them, and genuine disagreements, then people will pile in to try and get it over the line and try to assist that. So I don't know what else you want to say. There is plenty of examples where this has worked perfectly. There may be an issue with training. We've had to do this from a standing start because it was the only way to us to win the right to shape the future of this industry. We've done that. What's happened in 9 months is unprecedented. We're not saying it's all good. We're saying we're coming round again, and where it's not been done well, there will be models. The revision process itself, hadn't been tested for a long, long time. So even looking at that, whether what a structural revision looks like, how that's done going forward. Is that as it was originally? Is that the best way? What tabletop revisions looks like, so that we can shape our training for local reps and things like that. But there's no excuse if there's not a rep in that unit and a manager is saying I'm forcing in this revision, then every member in that office is a union rep in effect, and you should be on your phone to your branch and you should be getting the area rep in there. No one should settle for that, and no, we're not asking anyone to settle for that. They should be mutual interest, fully negotiated revisions, engage the people involved, get the deals over the line, get it delivered, get it deployed. That's what it should be. So these examples that come up, and I don't know how widespread they are, because like I say, this isn't everywhere. There's really good reports as well of how it's been conducted. So, but where it's fallen short, for whatever reason, it ain't about blame. We'll get in there and support those members and support that rep and make sure we correct whatever it is that's wrong in there. That's what we're trying to do now by saying going around and do these reviews of the revisions, if you like. That's what we're trying to do.
Terry, I've got loads of specifics here from Mark, but I want to come back to you, because I think a comment from Wayne's really interesting, and I know you'd want to take a view on it, and maybe Mark will as well, actually. And Wayne just says, no revision will come into Grays, Essex, unless the workforce are listened to. Walks are made achievable on a daily basis, and we will not let planner push crap through this office. That to me from Wayne says, that if you're asking for a model, there's the one from Wayne's, is you sort yourself out, you organise, and you don't let things happen to you. Isn't that, what being in the CW is all about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Wayne's a rep, do I? What I know is there must be a rep in there. There may even be a committee in there, and they may have a different view to that. So it's difficult. I mean, I wouldn't. My advice would, I don't think anyone should be allowed to push what Wayne was describing there into an office. We want a proper revision that people are engaged on. Now, listen, people don't like change, so not everyone's. Listen, that ain't. I've said it before. That ain't new. When I was a local rep, you did a revision. You had some people who had their nose pushed out of joint. That's part and parcel of it. But if it's the right revision, if it's the right thing for the office, and democratically the office decide that's the revision, then that's it. But if people are just the suggestion is there that in Grays they're just trying to Wayne's just come through saying he is the rep. Well, Wayne, absolutely. Don't let as you described it, be pushed into your office. And I assure you, if that is what someone's trying to do, then I know your area rep, your divisional rep, and this national union will support you. You're on mute, Chris.
Sorry, I was making sure I was keeping quiet for you. I kept too quiet. One of the other things that's coming through, Mark, is our part-time members. I mean, I've missed a question because there's so many here now. It's gone down the list. But Katie was saying that she is asking the question of I thought there would be an opportunity for me to gain more hours. Quite a few people saying exactly the same thing. So, I thought, an answer from you on that, but also the fact that, the point you and Terry have made is that, we have had hundreds of our members add their contractor hours. increase via this process. And I think that, there is a reality to that. Maybe it's a cultural thing where we don't hear the good news, we only hear the bad news. It's certainly a social media cultural thing. So the element on whether people should have had hours operated, and we've also got a lot of part-time members saying, when do we get the pay rise related to the shorter working week? So those two part-time member questions, Mark.
Oh, well, first of all, I was kind of laughing, not laughing, but it struck me. It was a certain irony to the points that people are making. People are saying on one hand the union's ineffective and it doesn't have any influence, and then on the next we're getting into minutiae about revision proposals to the nth degree, and the union's right and ability to shape those. So I think they're important points to actually just think about for a minute, because I've got to say to you, there ain't many other organisations or any other trade unions that I'm aware of where our local reps have the opportunity to influence basically every facet of your daily working life. Yes, trade unions tend to negotiate at a higher level bargaining in terms of pay rates, etc., headlines, but they don't tend to have a direct influence and input into duty patterns, into the makeup of a delivery round, for example, rest day cover, an indoor job, etc., So, in a way, I think that's a demonstration of how effective a trade union we are. But with that comes some complications and comes some difficulties maybe in some of these conversations. But don't for 1 second believe that the union doesn't have influence over those factors, because we do. The company didn't want us to, not to that level, when we embarked upon these negotiations. As I said earlier on, they just wanted us to stand aside effectively and watch them strip out everyone's attendance patterns, the options that go within that, earnings packages, full-time, part-time, etc., at the whim of the employer. And we were not prepared to accept that, and that's what we fought over, and that's what the ballot and the disputes were over, and that's why we are pleased we got your backing, and we're pleased that we got the agreement, because we are now effecting those things. Now, it doesn't mean to say that there aren't issues, and there are issues, and we'll work through them, but we do have major influence. In terms of the part-time uplift, it depends when you deploy the revision. If there's still some outstanding revisions to deploy that are not going to meet the deadline, the assurance from the CEO is that no one will be out of pocket. And so the part-time uplift, and I've been speaking to the National Delivery Director earlier on, actually before I came on this call, because we do need to put guidance out on those revisions that's kind of straddled over the deployment timeline, because it will cease now. We're getting in the next week or so, because we're getting near peak, and there will be some units that will not deploy, and we need specific arrangements for those dependent on the circumstances in them. But the clear factor is that no one will be out of pocket, and even if the uplift for part-timers doesn't take place now, it will be backdated till the end of October to ensure that nobody loses out financially. For those units that have already deployed, the part-timers should have already had the pay uplift on completion of the DDS submission, and the full-timers should have had the uplift, obviously, when they moved on to the new duties on 37 hours. So I'm not entirely sure if there's details, send them in to us where that's not happened, and we'll pick them up. In terms of the part-time uplift overall, that has been a massive success. And that has been a big feature. When I've been going around talking to our members when I do visits, that comes over loud and clear, because many part-timers, particularly a lot of female part-timers who've got childcare, two things around the revision. One, they've moved on to a fixed duty in a lot of cases, which has given them regularity in terms of when they can pick their children up, childcare, etc. And secondly, obviously to uplift in hours. And I know the holiday pay arrangement agreement now, but to be on a contractual uplift at a higher rate, to be made permanent as well, particularly if you want to, get a mortgage or you want to take a loan, you want some security in your life, is very, very important to our members, and rightly so. And so, those have been huge gains, and that has been felt. And I've seen the numbers. When the dust settles on this phase of deployments, we will get the exact numbers around how many part-timers have been made up, how many to an uplift, and then how many to full-time. And I'm pretty sure that will be quite an impressive figure, because Royal Mail, and this is the other thing with some of the things that we're trying to clear up, Royal Mail embarked upon an arbitrary 24-hour route into the company. It was they who instigated that. That was the only route of recruitment into Royal Mail, starting as a part-timer on 24 hours. Even though there were no templated 24-hour-a-week job, they did that for several reasons. One, they wanted to exploit people's flexibility, which is not good, because effectively people coming in on a 24-hour level, in many cases, were being expected to work over and above that on a day-to-day basis. And so people who didn't want to work over, they effectively almost were forced to leave. And then there were people who wanted a full-time job that were taken on 24 hours. So effectively what Royal Mail developed was a contractual amount of hours per week that didn't suit anybody. And that has rebounded on them, because what that's exacerbated and increased is the churn rate, particularly around newly recruited people. And that's what's made the vacancy situation worse. So they've reaped what they've sowed in that sense. They may say that they did it because the circumstances of the company were different at the time. The outlook from the company was different at the time. Pleased to say now that, the outlook from the company is the right way, and people recognise that we want to grow, we want to expand, and that means giving people the right contractual hours for the work that they actually do. So the revisions have helped to improve that, and that has been significant.
Thank you, Mark. Just the last couple of questions for you guys. I'm going to give you a chance to sum up. Whilst do that, I noticed that Tony Booch, on the sort of behalf of the union, Mark and Terry, has been sort of asking lots of you to let us know where you work when you're raising your questions, because it's difficult if you say my revision's a load of this, that, and the other. There's no context for us if you're not saying where you're from, and hardly anyone's come back to us. So if we're going to help and we're going to intervene, then please let us know. I know it's frustrating and you're getting out there, but please let us know where your office is so we can try and help. And remember, we've got the feedback form. I'll ask the team to put the link out on the page as well. And to repeat as well, we had 300 replies on that form, and every single one of those today has gone out to a divisional rep for a senior intervention. So we try and help your office. So this union is actively trying to do the things that Mark and Terry have been talking about on this session, making sure you get looked after. So Terry, something that's been raised consistently is recruitment. The gap between basically, a revision goes in, and actually this is not just delivery related. It's quite a few. I saw notice a few mail centres and drivers are saying it as well. And Davey Robertson and us are going to be doing a session on that as well at some point. But quite a few people saying, like, the revision's gone in. There's new duty sets. There's left some gaps. But management aren't recruiting people quick enough, and they aren't training people quick enough. So that's putting pressure on the current workforce. Is there anything we can do to, put pressure on Royal Mail, expedite that process, and get people up to speed? Because there's quite a few officers are saying that they think that is the major problem for them.
Yep, and it is. We've put out 2 joint statements, Chris. I've said this a bit earlier. We've now said the first port of call within that office. Ask anyone in there they got any family and friends who want to come in, because we could get them in the door a lot quicker, subject to the interview process. But that could be, almost instant compared to what has gone on in terms of people waiting 3 months for an interview and this sort of stuff. Equally, we can push the manager locally to, as I've said, use local Facebook pages or local papers, whatever, to try and get people into the system so we can recruit them as quickly as possible. Listen, it is, I understand people's frustration. If we've deployed revisions when we haven't got enough people, then you don't need the brains of Lloyd George to work out it's not going to work, do you? We've got sick levels as well. It's not just recruitment, and that's worrying. And it's not all COVID related either. So that's worrying as well. All these things have got to be examined as to why. But on the issue of recruitment, we're definitely already putting interventions in place. And there's no reason, if, again, locally, recruitment is required, and I'm talking about recruitment to the right hours, not what Mark was just talking about. If it's a full-time job that's available and there's a need to recruit to that full-time job, then that should be the contract offered, not just 24 hours. That stuff has all changed. Our joint statement covers that off. We're trying to bring in more young people, Chris, as well. We're even trying to get it so we can bring back the postal cadets. Some of that has got to be worked out with Ofcom because of if young people are over 16, etc., there's certain rules we'd have to adhere to. So there's a massive focus on recruitment and all these other issues. My point is we're negotiating them as we go, Chris, and they take time to land across an organisation this size. But if you're local and you definitely need to, you're in a recruitment situation, and if you don't think the manager or whatever is moving quick enough and you're the local rep, then challenge that on the basis of the 2 joint statements we've issued. And if you're having problems with that, then we go through the dispute process, resolution process, make it an issue, get it up through the appropriate systems, and someone will come in and intervene. There's 2 joint statements out there. I would urge the branches and the reps to have them on them. If I was a local rep, that would be in my room or it'd be pinned up on a notice board. There are certainly things that can be done now to speed up recruitment. What I'd say, Chris, can I just make this point? It's also a problem, though, that people can help us with, because one of the things we're getting is where we do get people through the door, they don't always stick. And some of the reasons that, they don't stick, we're trying to examine, and the companies now asking people why they leave. And there's been some, stuff which is both sides of the fence as to why people come in and they don't stick in the job, whoever they are. So we got to be looking at that as well. We need retention as well. We're getting people in. And if we address some of these issues, the pressure that people are under on the job, the way they're being asked to work, etc., as these things land and we get on top of them, the key thing is making sure when people come into Royal Mail, they stick, they stay because they think it is a good job, and it's so that's important. But you're never going to turn that around in 9 months, but we've certainly put the interventions in place, and they'll take time to bed in. But I would urge people, the stuff we have put out, you can use it as a local rep, etc. Then make sure you're using it and put some pressure on to make sure it's being utilised.
Thanks, Terry. That's spot on. So thanks for that answer. Also, thank you, by the way, to all the members who have responded when we said, let us know where you work, and that'll be helpful to us. And I can see you all responding to the union's comments. So thanks for that, because that is obviously the key. We need to know where you work if we're to get in there and try and help out with your revision. Just going to give both Mark and Terry now the final few moments to sum up, starting with you, Mark. Just any reflective thoughts? Obviously, there seems to be a lot of anger, frustration in the comments from our members. People, I think, wanting, or not wanting to do back the union, have always backed the union, but feel that they're struggling at this point. Clearly, we've set out how we're helping those people both tonight and setting our divisional reps and what our branches do every single day of the week, where they do a great job. But is there any message to those people, Mark, as a final thought from yourself?
Yeah, it's normally me who gets angry and frustrated. Look, we understand the change is difficult, but I think we've got to try and look at it in a positive sense. I know that's difficult at times, and I do understand. I do hear firsthand, people saying we don't get out. We do get out. I'm going out to another office in the morning as much as we can. So, because I've got to be honest with you, I enjoy getting out. I don't know why. Even though quite often people don't want to say nice things to you, that's the way it is. We'll take that on the chin, big enough and ugly enough. But we do listen to your views, and I certainly do, because you're the most important people, are the people who do the job. I can't stress that enough. Particularly, I'm the officer responsible for delivery people, and to me, talking to our delivery members firsthand is absolutely invaluable. And I really do appreciate, even though people have got concerns. Listen, I think at the moment it has been difficult in terms of the revision deployment. No one likes change, and we have been in a position for some years where effectively there's been a degree of inertia, and there hasn't been activity. Equally, though, when we put out the questionnaire around what your issues are, we had several that came in and said we're angry because our office hasn't gone through a revision. So some people are angry because they've had a revision. Some people are angry because they haven't had a revision, a structural one. So you're never going to please all the people all the time, and that's not what we understand. That we're realists, but we will deal with the issues, and where we've still got the issues, we will come back round. I've said it at the start. We have a PIR process, so effectively the revision is not completed in totality until that post-implementation review process is undertaken and it's signed off by local parties to say that the revision is working. So all of those units that are having difficulties will have to go through that process, and we are going to track that. We've asked for a national track to make sure that they're completed, and they're completed to joint satisfaction. So they have to be signed off locally by the manager and the CW reps locally. So that will happen. I would say to everybody, look, we're in a difficult world, but we're in a changing world. And the worst thing we could do is to try and just stand still. That won't get us anywhere. If Royal Mail is going to succeed and grow and innovate, and I repeat, I think the direction from the senior management team at the company now is in that vein, which is good. But that brings with it a different challenge. There are different challenges, and that will mean constant change. Because if Royal Mail doesn't adapt, it doesn't change, it will lose market share. And if it loses market share and it doesn't grow, there will be different pressures on us, different pressures completely on all of us, and they're worse pressures around threats of redundancy, difficulties getting uplifts in pay, improvements in terms and conditions, and that is not where any of us want to go. So we understand and appreciate it's difficult, but look, we're on the right track. We will solve the problems together, and this union has no equal as far as we're concerned. We are the best. We have our problems, but together we will come through them, and we will take the industry forward and our members forward, most importantly. So thanks for your time. We'll do some more of these, but look, change is not easy.
Thanks, Mark. Spot on, buddy. Terry, final word from the officers from yourself.
Well, I want to thank everyone who has sent in their questions, as tough as it might be, as frustrated as they are. I hope there's some comfort in the fact that we're listening and we're trying to deal with these issues. I'd like to thank all of the PE members or reps that have been trying to help us out with some of the questions. Chris, I don't get to see all that, so I don't know, but if people have been doing that, we really appreciate that. One thing won't change for me, Chris, ever. I think our members and our reps, this union and this public service, are brilliant, all of them. And I don't mind some of this. I'll tell you now, we're not a union that runs and hides. Everyone's saying they know it's difficult and everything else, and it is tough. And I would say to a lot of our members, with your local rep, listen, there may be some people out, local reps, that have took up that task. They haven't necessarily had a lot of training. They've not done a revision before, etc., etc. But give your rep the support they deserve, because it's not many people want to step forward and put themselves into those positions. It's a tough job being a union rep in a world that we live in, where change is just a constant thing that we're trying to deal with, and when genuinely it's not liked by people. But my view, this trade union, if we was to sulk away and not do these things, not come on, not do visits, not do AGMs. I'm talking about the people at the highest level of the union. You don't get this in a lot of places. We're prepared to do it. We're prepared to come on here, so we can't complain about what's said on here. And everything that's said gets noted down in so much as, in terms of the bullet points, so we can continue to try and improve where we are. But to just remember that this is 9 months that we've been dealing with this. It was very important we showed we could deliver on our agreements, mainly to external people who are still very serious about trying to bust up this company, aggressive shareholder takeovers, all the other stuff we have to have one eye on. We've put ourselves in the strongest position to protect this great public service and our members when we got the agreement. We put ourselves in the strongest position now to shape our future. The structures that are being developed in terms of pushing the power back down, rather than, no-neck people who don't go anywhere near the workplace making the decisions. We're reversing that, and that's the union as well. It should come from the bottom up about what's needed to deliver this great public service. We're making that adjustment. That's not been easy in management circles either, because there's still a lot of managers out there, I suspect, who would rather this union didn't have no say in the things that are going on. But we are serious about delivering a culture where locally, the local rep and the manager, with the engagement of the workers in that office, seriously work together to get the right mutual interests arrangements in there to maintain quality of service. Yes, we got to have productivity, but yes, you got to have the work there to sustain the hours that people want, etc. But to do it in the right way. It is possible. We've forgotten what that's like because where we've been the last 4 or 5 years. But we are getting there. So I repeat, regardless of this, I'm glad we do this. I enjoy these sessions, even when they're difficult, because listen, someone comes at us with a tough question and we come back at you. That's what it's all about. We're not, we don't do these jobs just to be some sort of punch bag. We come back if the reasons are right for us to come back. Where we have to take it on the chin and things that people might think we got wrong, then we look at that and we deal with that and we listen. But the most important thing, everybody, you got a union that don't hide, doesn't run away, comes out and talks to you. I'll leave you with this because I couldn't mean it more from the bottom of my heart. Our members are brilliant. All of our reps are brilliant. And I know we are going to protect this great public service. And that's everybody's legacy. And we must focus now on the next generation of postal workers, get more young blood into our industry, more reps, making sure we continue to protect what we hold so dear. And that includes year-on-year improvements to your terms and conditions. The shorter working week, Chris, I want to make this point, right? Because of the fatigue on the job as well. When we secure the 35 hours, we've got 2 more to go. I believe what coincides with that is that none of our duties should be more than a 4-day week, so that people have got the right recovery time if the job's tougher on the street. 4 3-day weeks. There's all sort of inventive duty patterns which will serve the customers. 24/7 is what we agreed to in our agreement. Serve the customers, but also make sure our members have got more inventive duty patterns, more time off, if that's what they choose to take, and we're still, protecting people in that way as well. So it's about innovation all the way through from this point on. And I strongly believe that this time next year we'll be be even more measures of the improvements we've made. But top people, everyone, all of our members, all of our reps, thanks very much. Thanks for coming on. Whether they're tough questions or not is irrelevant. At least we've heard them and you've heard our responses, and that's what it's all about.
No, that's quality, Terry, and you're getting a lot of both for yourself and Mark getting a lot of recognition for the point you made about fronting up. So yeah, Terry and Mark have made it clear. We've gone through all the difficult questions tonight. We fronted up as union as we always do. We've got the feedback form which is out there. We've got interventions which will take place in dozens of different offices around the country. So that's happening. Thank you to Terry. Thank you to Mark for always fronting up and never shying away from the difficult questions. To repeat what Terry said, thank you to every executive member, divisional rep and branch official and local rep who's been in there answering our members' questions, putting over alternative points of view, giving information. You've done a great job tonight in the comments. That makes our job a lot easier. Thanks most of all, though, to the 10,000 of you who have logged in tonight. It's a phenomenal turnout, phenomenal engagement with your union across all of our platforms. So we're really, really pleased with that. And from our perspective, remember the feedback form. Remember that we're staging several interventions, and remember to stick with your union because it's looked after you relentlessly over so many years and will continue to do so. Good night from all of us, everyone. Take care.
Cheers.